Hey, everybody. Hey, how you doing? That was a great lead-in for my talk. Super inspiring. A lot of people going from being translators or some other line of work to becoming really huge celebrities. Downstairs, 1,000 people in line to meet iJustine. I didn't know there was actually anybody here over the age of 20, so it's great to see that there are some. This is going to be a business talk, a talk about the sustainability of YouTube, with a lot of data and facts in it from my experience. So we're going to talk about a lot of the good things of YouTube, and we just heard from Hannah the awesomeness of YouTube. YouTube at its absolute best. People starting from nowhere, creating huge movements, getting huge audiences, and then doing interesting things with them. That's the best of YouTube, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some of the challenges, the bad things about YouTube. I'm going to talk about a new deal that I'm proposing YouTube give to content creators. And then I'm going to talk about owning your own audience. So next slide. Oh, I have a thing. Next slide. OK, just to give you some of my qualifications, and I'll be very brief about this. I've been publishing, my companies have been publishing on YouTube since the beginning. We have over 2 million subscribers across 20 channels. We've published about 30,000 videos, a lot of them in the how-to space, whether it's guitar or cooking or video games. We've had well over $1 million in YouTube revenue, not direct sales, but YouTube actually sending us checks over the years. And we were part of the group of people selected about 1.5 years ago to have funded channels on YouTube. Anybody from YouTube in the audience, by the way? No, not like with YouTube accounts or publishing to YouTube, like who work at the YouTube Corporation. Oh my God, you all work at YouTube? Jesus, I'm fucked. Listen, I love you guys. It's been a great relationship. Okay, good. Whew. Okay, no pressure. Anyway, we were part of that 9 funded channels. Thanks for the cash. We were selected for second cycle funding. Out of the 100 or so people that I know of who were part of that funding, maybe 5 or 10 of them in that first cycle got selected for funding. We were lucky enough to be one of those people. We actually turned down the YouTube funding. I think we're the only company that has turned down YouTube funding to date. I'm going to go into the economics of why I made that decision, what's broken about YouTube. Our most successful video to date is how to do the Harlem Shake. It was actually probably one of our least successful videos. We did it about 1.5 years before the Harlem Shake broke out. When it did, we got 15 million views in 2 months, which was quite fun. And I myself host a podcast called This Week in Startups, and I've been doing that for 375 episodes over the last 4 years. It's primarily an iTunes thing, but the YouTube community has grown to about 30 or 40,000 subscribers, so it's actually doing okay. These are 3 of the shows that broke out when we did our 9-show deal with YouTube. The first one is called Exit. It's cross-fitness. It's aimed at young women. And what you see there are the minutes watched per week, which is a key statistic for the YouTubers back there, the YouTube staff, and views. And as you can see, in just 20 weeks, this show grew all the way to well over 2 million views, or 2 million minutes watched per week. Pretty big success for us. The 2 other shows, MMA Surge and Wellcast, had a similar growth, which was incredible. And this is what we all love about YouTube. When you say video online, you mean YouTube. It's 1 billion people a month, and it's really a juggernaut. These statistics, as impressive as the charts look, are nothing compared to people like iJustine or Ray or Smosh or those other ones. Their charts would dwarf these. But this is unheard of in traditional media. This is why there's so many people attracted to YouTube. This is the best of YouTube, is the growth that you can do when you connect with an audience. Now, the 6 other shows we did not connect with audiences. They were aimed, and this was YouTube's goal about 1 year ago, was to try to expand to older demographics. They since have kind of given up on that, I think. And I think if you look downstairs at thousands of people lining up who are teens, it was a pretty savvy move on YouTube's part to just basically say, let's focus on young people. And these shows are all targeted at younger people. And I just wanted to show you Wellcast. If you do a search on YouTube for puberty, we have the top 3 results. And this is just a little bit of Wellcast.
Today we're going to cover puberty from the female perspective. And if you don't know what that means, it might be because you A, haven't gone through puberty yet, or B, you're a boy. So boys, listen up. This is what we're about to cover. Our periods, pubic hair, your boobs, and cellulite. Hang out if you want. Section 1. your period.
I'll just end it right there. About 50 million people this year on YouTube will go through puberty, statistically speaking. But what this show taught us, this animated show, which YouTube was gracious enough to fund, and we matched their funding, it's just what it's like if you connect with an audience. We got literally hundreds of emails a day from young people saying, I'm depressed, I'm suicidal, I have domestic violence in my family, and we kept leaning in and tackling harder and harder subjects through animation and connecting deeper and deeper with the audience. And this was absolutely fantastic for us, and it was very rewarding for the team at our company, and that's the good of YouTube. And we'll state it again, it's free global HD hosting. What's not to love about that? 1 billion users a month, and the tools are absolutely amazing. Analytics, advertising, subscriptions. It's the best tool set in existence, and it keeps getting better every month. Anybody from the tool team back there at YouTube? Okay, you guys are just awesome. Like, every month we get some great new piece of candy from you guys, and it really makes our jobs easier. It's the largest advertising network in the world. That is Google, and YouTube is part of that, so that really helps. And it's a rabid, awesome, passionate community, as we saw from Hannah. And it's a brilliant mobile experience. YouTube has gotten mobile right. The majority of views on YouTube, if they're not already, will be mobile. And they have nailed it with their apps on every platform. Now, the bad. The CPMs are very low. Very, 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 very low. And you hear that all the time. I'm not allowed to, and so let me just make this clear to my friends from YouTube in the audience, I'm not allowed to talk about any statistics from my channels or from our deal. I will not do that. I will talk about the 20 partner statistics that they've told me as a disclaimer. So the CPMs are generally very low. It's a function of a couple of things. One, there's so much inventory. 2, YouTube doesn't have a dedicated sales force. 3, they only show ads on a small number of videos, which is great for users, bad for publishers. There's a bunch of reasons. You get no marketing support. There's 0 marketing support from YouTube. Of course, they have 1 billion users, so you can get incredible growth. But YouTube as a partner is not going to give you anything in terms of support. You will see some things that they're trying, like the Geek Week downstairs, or they did a comedy week. So that's kind of interesting. That's them dipping their toes, I think, into maybe providing some level of marketing support to a small subset of people. 0 sales support. They don't have a sales group. Larry Page and the Google team, from what I understand, believe everybody should buy from the Google interface, and that lets you buy the Google search engine and YouTube and all the different things. So without having a dedicated sales force selling premium advertising, it's going to be very hard on content creators who are trying to get premium CPMs. Premium CPMs have been one of the biggest challenges for YouTube, as folks know. There is a real lack of subscriber controls. YouTube's made a lot of changes to support time on site, the statistic they care about. They have done a really bad job about the tools that favor content creators. And a lot of content creators have been very vocal about this. Things like when you comment or like something that no longer gets on people's feeds, control over your own channel, channel changes, and YouTube's been very bad about communicating those things to channel and subscribers. And if you look at Google's history, a lot of what Google's done in the search engine space, if YouTube follows that track, it has not been pretty for content creators who have been partners with YouTube. If you talk to the people at Yelp or any of the other folks who partnered with Google, the search engine, they saw Google take the top third of search pages, move their results down in favor of Google's own interests. Will that happen on YouTube or not? We'll see. But the early indication is YouTube has done things in their favor, not in favor of content creators. And the revenue split, completely unsustainable. And that's what I'm really going to drill into here today, is the revenue split and why that means YouTube cannot ever work for content creators as a business unto itself. The business of being a content creator is using YouTube strictly for marketing and then using that audience to take it off YouTube and make money some other way. And it doesn't need to be that way. So let's talk about the split. Okay. YouTube, and this is the split according to sources. YouTube has been very clear with people, do not talk about the split, do not talk about the split. The 20 partners, I know it's laughable. I agree, everybody knows it's laughable. Anyway, the partners I've talked to, the 20 partners have told me it's 45-55. I cannot tell you what my split is with YouTube. And this seems like, hey, we're getting a pretty good deal. We get 10% more than YouTube. But let's go through a scenario. And this is a scenario of a professional, let's say professional in quotes, publisher. This is not a publisher like Hannah, who was just on stage, one person or two people, but this is where Hannah's going, right? So let's say 150 episodes of 5 minutes each a year. Let's say you have a cost of $500 a minute, a $375,000 a year budget. And let's say your team consists of some talent, a director, a writer, and an editor. Small team, but let's say this is a full-time effort. You're producing those 15 minutes of content every week. 10 million views a month. This would be an extraordinary success. Any YouTube creators in the room? How many of you get over 10 million views a month? Okay, 1, 2. Any others? So this is a tremendous success if you get over 10 million a month. 250 million views over 2 years. Have you guys gotten over 250 million views? Amazing. There's only 503 channels in the history of YouTube that have gotten over 250 million views. This means 1.67 million views per video if you do the math. At a CPM of $2, the reported CPM from the 20 partners I spoke to over the last year, this means $500,000 in revenue. And let's assume you have a sales executive at your company that costs around $75,000 and gets a 10% commission. Does that sound about right to the guys with the 250 million? They give a pretty big, decent nod. So, click and click. There you go. Okay, so in this scenario, YouTube takes their 45% VIG, as Mark Suster, the investor and board member of Maker, calls it a VIG. Your salesperson gets about 25%. That means you have about 30% left for production. The problem with that is now you're way over budget for your show. And if you look at the fairness of this, when you break the production down, YouTube is still taking their $225,000, and your writer and your editor and your director and talent are barely scraping by. And this is the rub. How many people think that this is a fair split? Raise your hand. YouTube people, do you think it's a fair split? Raise your hand. Gotcha. Okay, this is the main problem. This is unsustainable. Now, YouTube will complain, or some people at YouTube will say, oh, we have to pay for bandwidth. That's actually not true. YouTube has fixed bandwidth costs. And YouTube is profitable to the tune of $1 billion a year, according to analysts. And Google is profitable to the tune of tens of billions of dollars a year. So the fact that they're holding to this 45% split is kind of unconscionable in my mind, and the reason I turned down the money. But I'm proposing a new deal. And I hope my friends at YouTube take it in the spirit in which I'm presenting it, which is I would love to build a business on YouTube that worked economically and that was sustainable. And so that artists and creators who work for me could make a decent living. It's very hard to do that, except for maybe some of the outliers, the top 50 people on YouTube. And so here's a new deal. YouTube gets 30% when they sell, just like the App Store does. And YouTube gets 10% when we sell. Right now, the way YouTube has set up their system, how many people who are YouTube creators out here have a salesperson selling? 1, 2, this is 3. The problem is when you sell, you have to give 45% to YouTube. Your salesperson probably also costs you 20, 30%. So you're nodding. And that means when you sell a $100,000 deal, you're already $70,000 is gone. Why would you go through the trouble? And this is causing a huge impasse in the ecosystem. Because YouTube is taking so much, because YouTube is being so greedy and taking 45%, it makes no sense for a content creator to hire salespeople, which then means content creators are even more dependent on YouTube, and that the entire ecosystem is frozen. But if YouTube came out and said, if you sell it, we'll just take a 10% cut. Then your salesperson, you're smiling, that would be a better deal. Your salesperson sells something for 100, you would say, maybe I'll get 2 salespeople, maybe I'll get 3 salespeople. And let's look at how this scenario would break down. Click, click, click. Okay. If the publisher sold $250,000, YouTube would take their 10%, 25. The publisher would get $225. If YouTube sold $250, they would get $75. And when you blend that out, YouTube's blended rate would be 20%. More than enough for YouTube. More than enough for a highly profitable YouTube and a massively juggernaut profitable Google. They don't need to make anything more than 20%. That's just fine for them. I can speak for YouTube. But in this scenario, what's great about this scenario is, look, YouTube still made $100,000 off that $500,000. Sales took 15%, and production gets a bigger piece. And even with this, you still might be underwater a little bit on the production costs I explained before. And those production costs were not some ridiculous production costs. This is a modest production. How many people here have productions on YouTube that have over $100,000 a year invested in them, including your time? Let's assume you're, OK, good. So that's a lot of people. Let's keep moving. Next slide. OK, so I wrote a couple of pieces about this about 2 months ago. Did anybody read them? A couple of people read them, good. So they created a lot of buzz. People in Variety and Hollywood Reporter sort of hit on it. What I wrote about was what everybody was talking about at YouTube's parties. So when I was at a YouTube party with a bunch of people, whether it was Maker or Machinima or anybody who was funded, everybody was sitting there complaining about the deal. Everybody was complaining about the lack of support. Everybody was complaining about sales. When I went to talk to YouTube people who I was actually in business with, they were like, Jason, we don't think you're actually correct. They didn't actually think that I spoke for everybody. I don't, but they don't think I got it right. But when I wrote it, and everybody started piling on, I think now they get the message that maybe they should change some things. And maybe it would be in everybody's best interest if the share got a little bit better. And maybe, I'm going to go into some more changes that they could make. But the problem is people were scared of YouTube. People were very scared to upset YouTube. People were very scared to tell them the truth. People were very scared to not get included in the funding, very included not to get re-upped. Well, listen, that's a dysfunctional partnership. And that's what I told them when they offered the money. And they said, listen, why don't you just take the money? And I said, listen, I would love to take the money and do this, but it's not going to be sustainable. We're going to be here a year from now, and these channels are still not going to work out. We still won't have salespeople, and it's going to be a mess. Let's solve the fundamental problem. Here's 5 or 6 things you could do. And what they said to me was, we value you as a partner. Take the deal. And there was really no negotiation. But now that there's a little bit more buzz about this, Mark Suster and Maker, Machinima, a lot of people are starting to get very vocal, saying, hey, YouTube, let's get a better deal going. If you just tweet right now, hey, at YouTube, can we get a new deal? I think if just 10 or 15 of us do that, the next 100 do it, the next 500 do it, and then I think YouTube will come to the table. I'm not saying like create a union. I'm just saying tell them how you honestly feel. Because everything else is perfect about YouTube. These are very small changes that they could make that would make it completely sustainable. Now, this doesn't mean that YouTube is not awesome. I don't want this to seem negative, this talk. I'm just pointing out the key problem that every YouTuber will get to eventually. Every YouTuber, as you go up this path of success, will hit this roadblock. And then you're left with a couple of choices. One is leave YouTube to some of the new competitors that are coming, or try to make money off YouTube. So let me ask a question. How many people who are creators here would like to stick with the existing deal? Raise your hand if you'd like to stick with the original deal that YouTube has with you. Is anybody raising their hand? How many people would prefer YouTube do the deal I've proposed here today? Raise your hand if you prefer my deal. OK, that's everybody. So to the 20 people from YouTube, if you think that I'm just a loudmouth giving you a hard time, your creators are in the room asking for a better deal. It's not just Jason being obnoxious or overbearing. Everybody feels this way. So let's sit down at the table and make a better deal. There's a couple of other things we'd like too. One, we'd like to be able to set our own ad frequency. If I invest in content, I should be able to click a box that says I want an advertisement in front of it, or I want YouTube to set it. It's not fair that YouTube gets to set if there's an ad in front of your videos or not. That should be, I think, something we set. Number two, I think we should get the email addresses of the people who subscribe to our channel. When you're logged into thank you. Thank you. And the reason I say this is because when somebody is logged into YouTube, they've already opted into YouTube. But when they click on iJustine or Hannah, they're no longer subscribing to YouTube. They want a relationship with Hannah or iJustine. But YouTube doesn't give you that email address. They don't think that you'd be able to handle the responsibility of having the email addresses of your fans. And I think that this would transform the ecosystem as well, because people who have 1 million or 10 million subscribers, if they got just 10% of those to convert to email, you could really make a go of this as a business. And you can see with Hannah, she was able to make a really good go of it. Imagine she had those, I think she said she had 700,000 subscribers. Imagine she had 70,000 email addresses. How that would transform her business? Well, they could easily do this, YouTube. And then here's a simple request. YouTube is not willing to do any marketing, right? We don't want to pick favorites, no marketing. How about for every 1 million views I bring to YouTube, every 1 million views I get, Hannah had millions of views, I get 1% of that returned to me in TrueView ads, or co-marketing dollars, they call this, right? So that seems pretty easy. I brought 1 million views, I get 10,000 back to promote my next video. A simple kickback of 1% of what I brought to the table. Because as content creators, we're not sending people to ourdomain.com. We're not sending them to iJustine.com or Hannah.com. We're sending them to YouTube.com. We're benefiting YouTube every day. As a group, YouTube couldn't do what they do without us. So don't underestimate your power in this negotiation with YouTube. Even though it's a lot of different individuals, together you're collectively very strong. That line downstairs for Zay Frank and iJustine should make it very clear to all of you that without iJustine and Zay Frank, there is no YouTube. YouTube would just be cat videos. Do not underestimate your power. And here's what it would look like. By the way, I don't speak for iJustine at all. I just decided this would be as good a place to design as any other. When you click subscribe, give iJustine your email. It's a little checkbox. Very simple to do, and users understand that. And by the way, you've seen that on Facebook before, right? How many people have seen that when you sign up for something on Facebook? Give your email, right? How many people like this idea? Raise your hand if you like it. Okay, how many people who are YouTube creators don't want this idea? One person doesn't want it. Okay, we'll talk to you in the Q&A. No, I want to hear the reason. But YouTube, take a note, 20 people from YouTube. Okay, and this is YouTube's big challenge, and it really goes back to a Google philosophy. Google believes everybody should be treated the same, but that's not how the world works. Everybody should not get the same deal. Effort should be rewarded. Effort should be rewarded. Investment should be rewarded. So when I brought YouTube my concerns, their typical response was, well, if we do that for you, Jason, then we have to do it for everybody. And I said, well, listen, I'm investing millions of dollars in the ecosystem. And you're investing some odd millions of dollars as a partner of ours. Why do you have to treat the person who you selected for first cycle funding or the person who has 2 million subscribers the same as the person with 2 subscribers? But that's how YouTube thinks right now, and it's broken thinking. It's not how Netflix thinks. It's not how HBO thinks. It's not how Amazon thinks. And this will be the thing that limits YouTube. And this is their cross to bear. This is their challenge that they have to break through. They think like the North, not the South. They think that content creators should be kept level and flat. But Netflix, with their 14 Emmys, they think that they should pick winners. And they think that Kevin Spacey, or Orange is the New Black, should be treated differently than the person who takes a video of a cat falling off a television. And this is what YouTube has to change. They cannot think like Google engineers. They cannot think like algorithms. They have to think like artists and producers and change this thinking. You know, people who invest $5 million in the ecosystem should be treated differently than those who invest $500 and $50 and $5 and $500. And why shouldn't the person, like maybe that email checking box, the answer from YouTube will be people will abuse it. Well, I don't think iJustine will abuse her users. So why don't we make it so in order to get the email subscribe feature, you have to be verified, or you have to have over 100,000 subscribers or something. Or maybe the revenue split I'm talking about is for people who've been on the system for over a year and published over 100 videos. But YouTube has a very hard time with this concept of different people getting different treatment in the system. And effort should be rewarded. I'm going to very briefly go through a couple of things, and you guys know this as well as anybody, that I've seen other people doing that can make you a little bit less dependent. There's a good chance that YouTube will kind of just joke, hey, Jason made all these suggestions, and they'll ignore them. There's a chance if you guys support me and speak up that they won't. In the case that they don't give us any of the things that I'm suggesting, these are the ways I think that you can lower your dependency on YouTube. One is email lists. I brought this up
hey,
before.
Wellcasters, do me a kindness. Will you watch this video? We're going to try to convince you to subscribe to our newsletter.
I don't know what that techno music is. Oh, yeah. So this is an email we made and posted to our channel. This resulted in thousands of emails coming in. So we just told people, please get sneak peeks at new episodes, go behind the scenes, get a new drawing, exclusive content only on our email list. MailChimp is free if you have 2,000 subscribers. I won't play the whole email. How many people here who are YouTube creators have an email list I maintain? Very few, maybe half. How many people have over 1,000 emails on it? Even fewer. Oh, no, actually, decent number. This is going to be the thing that'll free you. Convert all your YouTube subscribers to email subscribers. Then if YouTube becomes a place for just doing marketing, you'll be able to do a deal with the 2 new competitors that are coming for YouTube this fall and into next year, or other people. You can be certain Yahoo, AOL, MSN, Microsoft, Facebook will be competing with YouTube in the next year. This is just too big of a success. And when they do, they're going to come to content creators like you, especially if YouTube doesn't change the deal, and you're going to be able to say, I have 5,000 email addresses, 50,000 email addresses, 100,000. The number of email addresses you have will determine how much of a better deal you get with that next person. This is your protection. And for CrossFit, the exit show I showed you, we've converted about 1 or 2% of our audience each month. So 150,000 subscribers, we now have 7,000 or 8,000 emails, and we've only been doing it for a couple of months. There's a chance we could get to even maybe trail our subscriber number, 6 months or something and catch up. This could be very transformative for YouTubers. Cliffhangers, I don't see anybody doing this, but I think this is going to be the future. We've seen other people go to Blip and some other content creators sites. I think some people are doing stuff on AOL. Do a cliffhanger, get your YouTube audience to say, watch the rest over here. And that's what you're going to have to start preparing yourself for, because YouTube CPMs are going to keep going down. They're not going to go up. They have too much inventory. They don't have a dedicated sales force. But you'll have other options. And your other options, people at Yahoo, Facebook, Microsoft, AOL, and other folks, maybe even Netflix or Amazon, dip down to this level. When those folks come into the market in the next 12 months, you want to be prepared. And having those kind of cliffhanger episodes is a great way for you to sell into the Microsoft, Yahoo, Facebooks, and AOLs. Mobile apps, we did one. Other people are doing mobile apps. This is very expensive. It's not going to work for everybody. But you can do simple mobile apps that are very sticky. And apps, email, and social are the 3 things Google does not control. Let me just say that one more time. Email, mobile, social. These things are very fragmented, and Google has a hard time controlling them. But Google has a very easy time controlling you if you're a YouTube publisher who doesn't do any of these other things. Because they can change the rules of how you reach your subscribers, and they have, right? And they keep changing those rules. And if they're going to change the rules, they're going to change the rules in favor of themselves in all likelihood. So you have to start figuring out what is your off-YouTube strategy and how do you develop this deep relationship. I think apps, although expensive, could be a good investment. Next slide, next slide. Kickstarter, we heard about this before. Obviously, it's working for people. And I think doing modest ones now and then turning off the ads on Facebook and telling people it's part of this. I'm sorry, turning off the ads on, little Freudian slip there. I don't know anything about a Facebook competitor coming at all. Although that would make sense. A lot. But if you do modest ones now, just 10 episodes. How many people have done a Kickstarter campaign or an Indiegogo campaign? Just a small number. We're going to start doing them for Wellcast. And Wellcast was offered funding in the second cycle. We didn't take it. I was like, I could do better than this on, Kickstarter. Obviously, merchandise, although this doesn't really work for everybody. And distribution partnerships. This is going to be the big thing. And you should really be preparing yourself for this. Build up your email database. Build up your cliffhangers. Build up your brand. Have your own domain name. Build up your social audience so that when these new partners come out, and you see here the Pet Collective, which is, I think, started on YouTube and still maybe on YouTube, but they're working with Blip now. I'm not sure of the exact relationship. You're going to see a lot of this. People have great YouTube channels, and then they, maybe they put 1 video up a week, but they tell people the other 3 are over on Facebook or whichever new partner. I think actually Twitter is going to be the big sleeper. Twitter has 100 partners right now in video that they're hosting video for. Nobody knows about it. But the NBA started putting clips on. What's the difference between a Twitter follower and a YouTube subscriber? Nothing. And so that's going to be a big platform. I predict Twitter will be the most likely competitor to YouTube. Now, Twitter would have to learn how to share revenue. As much as I'm dogging the YouTube folks for taking 45, Facebook and Twitter have 0 sharing currently, right? So we'll see where they wind up. And this is the crazy loophole that's occurred. YouTube, if you sell your 100,000 with your salesperson, YouTube will take 45% of it. But if you do a joint venture with Vitamin Water to make a series, and Vitamin Water is integrated into the show, YouTube will take nothing. It's integrated into the show. And they don't really have a way to police it, and everybody seems to be doing this. I don't want to rat anybody out, but this is, if they let Red Bull do their own content, and then you take your show, and it's iJustine and Jeep are producing this cross-country trip, and they integrate it, is YouTube going to kick iJustine off for doing that? Well, then they got to kind of kick Red Bull off. So this is why YouTube really needs to change the split, because now people are doing things to route around YouTube because of the split. And all the conversations I've been having with publishers is, how do we route around the 45% split? I know, let's do a show in partnership with a brand. And so, and meetups and live events, we just heard this, are a great way to do it. The new competitors, I think, starting to affiliate yourself with these kind of folks is a really smart idea. Because they're going to be looking at the YouTube success, and they're going to want a piece of the action. YouTube has been unchallenged for a number of years now, but they will be challenged shortly. And when they do, you're going to want to be aligned with the other folks and have some optionality, at least. I'm not saying turn off YouTube. That'd be like saying turn off your email or your Twitter. But if YouTube is not going to give us a fair deal, you're going to have to look at other places. And I think what's going to happen is these other places are going to look at the YouTube Achilles heel of the bad split. And now that's been pointed out, I think I pointed it out a couple of times here, they're going to look at that as that's the way to beat YouTube. So I wouldn't be surprised if Facebook or Netflix or AOL or Yahoo, these people come out and say, we'll give you 100% of revenue for the first year or two to try to get you to leave YouTube. And you know what, as content creators, the way YouTube has kind of treated you, I wouldn't blame you if you did. And if YouTube doesn't change the split, you should definitely do that. And if YouTube holds to this position that the split is just fine and we deserve 45%, even though all of you in the audience raised your hand and said you want the new deal, well, then they're not listening to their customers. There is no YouTube without the YouTube community and the channels. They need to listen. That's all I have to say. It's just one man's opinion. I'm sure some people differ, but I hope this starts a dialogue at the very least. And thank you for having me. And I think I have time for 2 questions or 3 questions. Anybody from YouTube have a question? No questions. No, there's one. Yeah, there's a microphone right there, I think. Be great to know where you're from. And
I'd prefer not to say.
Okay.
So I agree with a lot of what you have to say, and that has nothing to do with my company or who I work for. That is my own opinion alone.
Do you work for YouTube?
I do not.
Okay.
I work for somebody who's in a lot of business with them, and actually we know each other.
Okay. Can't see you here for the lights. Sorry.
So my observation, and I'd like to hear you comment on, is I've spoken to a couple of people who have been extraordinarily successful on the YouTube platform over the past 6, 7 years, who are at the absolute top apex of subscriber base and everything else. And the questions I asked them were, tell me about your life now. Are you like living in the nice house in the hills like a producer like me? And the answer universally, A, is no. B, they're working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year to sustain themselves, and it just doesn't sound like fun. And at a certain point, it's fine when you're 22, it's fine when you're 28, but I'm wondering what the plan long-term is from YouTube's perspective and what you think from your perspective for those people who've been so successful and yet aren't really living the dream.
Thank you. It's a very insightful question and observation. Listen, if you look at YouTube as a platform to grow your brand, get exposure, refine your talent, figure out what formats work, nobody can argue with it. But there does come a time when you have to pay a mortgage or a rent. And at that point, I think YouTube has to be a little more reasonable and take that into consideration. There's a small number of people who've made this work, and a lot of times what making it work on YouTube means is quitting YouTube and going and monetizing in other places. I think that's the thing YouTube is just absolutely missing. And I think it's because of this Google heritage where Google feels, or just a general lack of respect for content creators from the North. And I'm not saying individuals at YouTube don't respect the content creators. I just think the technology industry doesn't respect content creators. And if you look at the salaries of YouTube executives, probably the average salary of the people you interface with at YouTube is $150,000 or $250,000. And if you went to Maker or Machinima, the salary is going to be $30,000, $40,000, or $50,000. It's, for whatever reason, society does not sort of respect the content creators as much. And it's, I think, honestly, in a way, the content creators are scared of YouTube, and they don't want to piss them off, and they don't want to be left out of Geek Week. But I'll be honest, you see it yourself. Even hitting the promised land means what? I mean, when I did that split and I did those charts, I didn't even include an MCN in there. You put Maker in there, and Machinima taking a 30% cut, which they deserve, and they put a lot of fucking work into, helping develop those stars. But how does YouTube get 45% and then Maker and Machinima get, what, 10, 20, 30%? I don't know exactly what the split is. Does anybody know what that split is? 30? So like YouTube deserves more than Maker? That makes no sense. But why won't anybody speak up? Don't be afraid of YouTube. They're a great partner. There's great people who work over there. They just need to hear it, and they need to hear it unrelentingly. You have to do better for content creators. Next question.
So,
I'm getting a little worked up now.
So, Jason, you've done a
Yes.
great thing about the economics. First of all, I'm Daniel Harris with Dance Pass.
Nice to meet you.
Pleasure. We've met before.
Yeah.
Good to
A
see you
reoccurring
again.
theme, me not remembering people.
And I'm on your email list.
Okay, well, thank you.
You've done a great job bringing up the percentages and the marketing and everything else. The one thing that I believe it's broken in what you've addressed today is the effect of the democratization of media and what is happening here and what's going on here today. And when you point to a favored nations deal for a Tom Hanks or that kind of favored nations deal, that's going to kill YouTube and that's going to kill everybody in this room. So how do we make sure that if we do embrace these favored nations deals, that this group here doesn't get cannibalized as a result of that type of initiative?
That's a great question. So to sort of paraphrase, how do you keep what's special about YouTube going when you start giving people better deals? Well, I think what you do is you hold them out and you be very transparent about them. If you hit 5 million subscribers and you publish more than 200 videos a year, we're going to give you the platinum deal. If you have 1 million to 5 million subscribers and you publish regularly, you get the gold deal and tiers. And then you have something to work towards. And it wouldn't be because you're Tom Hanks. It wouldn't be because you negotiated a better deal or your salesperson or business development person knew somebody on the inside from their last company at YouTube or took them to the Jay-Z concert or some nonsense. It would be some very explicit metric. Subscriptions, publishing frequency, views. Let's make it so that the more you invest in YouTube, the better deal YouTube gets for you. Let's take another question. There's a microphone. I think you have to say it into the microphone for people to hear. I'll try to keep my answers short.
Yeah, hi, I'm Sanjeev from India.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for making the trip.
Yeah, thank you.
Did you really make the trip from India?
Yes, made
Wow.
the trip from India for this.
Wow.
So,
Vidcon rocks.
just, the thought is really, I think that YouTube is really a platform for new talent. And the moment you talk about a deal like you're talking about, this preferred status, then we're going to have the money bags community build in and take away some of the integrity of the platform.
Okay. So if people got a better split, the integrity would go down. I would disagree wholeheartedly. I think if iJustine got 90%, she would put that other 25% or 35% actually into better content and more interesting content. So I disagree. I don't think that giving people a better split would in any way damage the community. In fact, it would make it more sustainable. I mean, how many people here, how do I phrase this question, are, how many people here would move to another platform, like let's say Facebook or Twitter launched a monetization. How many of you would start publishing on Facebook and Twitter if they did a 30% deal or the deal I described? How many of you would do that, right? So everybody raises their hand, obviously. So I think for the YouTube people in the audience to take back to San Bruno is you're going to have a competitor at some point. So doing it as reactionary and changing the split because a competitor emerges is probably not as effective as doing it now in recognition of all the effort these people are putting into building your platform. We'll take a final question, I guess. I don't know how much time we have.
I wanted you to expand on the whole CPM side of things, because you think that it's going to go down.
Yeah.
A lot of advertisers are not really familiar with the power of using YouTube as a way of advertising their products. If more of those advertisers come in, do you still believe that CPM is still going to go down because of the inventory? Yeah,
that's a good question. The whole point of the funded content channels was to try to up the CPMs. CPMs will go up if you have scarcity and if you have a dedicated sales force explaining the value proposition. So people like AOL and Yahoo are going and using scarcity, the quality of the product, the distribution as a way to get high CPMs, and they're getting CPMs that absolutely trounce what YouTube gets. And in addition to that, YouTube's main interest is in increasing the number of views per visit, right? They've been very public about this. So if it was in your best interest for them, while it's in your best interest for there to be a pre-roll advertisement in front of 50% of your videos or 2/3, for them, it's actually in their best interest to have it in front of as few as possible to increase the session length, right? Which is the game they're playing. That's their metric that matters, is how long do people spend on the site. So that's always going to be an opposition. And there is no scarcity on YouTube, and there is no sales team at YouTube. So if you have a deep partnership with YouTube and you say, hey, can we go on a sales call together? I want to pitch Purina on my dog show, or I want to pitch, Jeep on my cross-country adventure. They don't have somebody to do that there. And that's a big philosophical, from what I hear from inside of YouTube and Google, big philosophical debate. Do we have a dedicated ad sales team? That has to change, or YouTube's going to start getting their ass kicked, because I believe that because Twitter and Facebook, AOL, Microsoft, and these new competitors, they will provide direct sales support and direct marketing support to the same creators who grew up on YouTube. So if YouTube makes no changes, what you'll see happen is you break out on YouTube, you get to 10 million views and 100,000 subscribers. And then you level up to a real deal, I'm using air quotes here, but a real deal with Twitter or Facebook or one of those new competitors. And that real deal means that they give you massive distribution support, massive sales support, and they go on a sales call with you and they help craft that with you. And this is the thing that YouTube's going to have to just make a very philosophical, fundamental decision. Do they want to be the farm league, or do they want to get Emmys, and do they want to be HBO, and do they want to have that component of the business? And I don't believe one negates the other. And I hope that's clear. I don't think they lose any of the open access of YouTube, any of the democratization of YouTube if they do that kickback, that 1% kickback I talked about. That doesn't change the nature of YouTube. Still, anybody can upload. Giving a kickback of 1% to somebody like Hannah is not going to destroy the fairness of YouTube, especially if everybody got it, or everybody who reached a basic benchmark got it. So, and YouTube and Google traditionally is a very poor communicator, especially with content companies. I mean, Google will not talk to anybody about search indexing. That's a black box. They just basically will not have any individual conversation with content creators. And YouTube is part of Google, so this is the real problem they have, is they have to embrace the content creators here, or their competitors will take them. And they're just going to have to treat YouTube as a different type of company than Google and the search engine and how they treat content creators there. Okay?
Do you differentiate between the 45% if it is YouTube and AdSense sales versus an in-house sales team?
Yeah, I don't think we need to, really. I mean, you could split hairs about that. If they did have a dedicated sales team selling it, sure, 37.5%, whatever. I mean, when you do the numbers, any reasonable business person will come to the conclusion that it's not sustainable currently. So any kind of concession on YouTube's part to make it more sustainable is going to take somebody like me who thinks about scaling businesses back into the ecosystem. But I told them, if you can't change this stuff, why would I invest in an ecosystem where you wouldn't address this fundamental broken thing? So even if you're giving me money for production, I still don't want to be there. Because, I mean, I'll use it for marketing, of course. You have to have a YouTube channel. It's great for free distribution. But I'm going to pursue relationships with the upcoming competitors, and I'm going to try to align myself with the people who want the high-end content, the people who want to do ad sales with me, the people who want to do distribution with me, the people who will have conversations with me about deal terms. If you're going to hold the line and say no deal term changes, everybody gets treated the same, well, you know what? You're not going to be the only game in town 12 months from now. And so I'm just going to go to everybody else and start developing relationships there. So long. And that's what I did.
Well, actually, could you talk more about that? Because my question was going to be, like, financially, what is YouTube's incentive to listen to your requests until those competitors come to a sizable platform?
Well, unfortunately, me making all these requests and being outspoken about it may actually make YouTube less likely to do it. I'm self-aware enough to understand that. That's why I asked all of you to go to them, and somebody called that out over there. Thank you. So I think you guys need to do it, right? I've already told them I'm out. I'll use YouTube for marketing. I'll use it for free hosting, sure, but I'm not going to really invest in the ecosystem anymore. I'm just going to put our channels on, sort of growth, and yeah, we'll do it for marketing. But 100 people have to come to them, and every meeting you have with a YouTube executive should start with, have you guys considered changing the split? Have you guys considered doing co-marketing dollars? Have you guys considered letting us own our subscribers? Just every time you meet with them, say those 3 things, and just absolutely make it clear to them that this could be a better deal. Why wouldn't you do that? Don't be scared of them. Don't worry about pissing them off. Just tell them the truth, because there will be other competitors. And so the chances of YouTube doing this go up based on 2 things and 2 things only. 1, how vocal the creators are, and 2, the options available to creators. Well, the options available to creators, I happen to know, are coming. So I'm not going to say specifically who, but there will be very significant competitors to YouTube who absolutely go out and individually contact each of you and say, come to our platform. That's coming. And then you going to YouTube right now and emailing your YouTube rep. And when you see them at the event with a YouTube badge saying, hey, Calacanis is a bit of an outspoken jerk, but he's right in this instance. And we should talk about this. They will back down. They will change it. It is guaranteed. If we're here a year from now, they will absolutely be taking 30%. I guarantee you that. And if you don't believe it, the truth is a lot of people have that deal right now. You just don't know about it. Discovery Channel, Revision 3, and many other people have historical legacy deals that give them a better percentage than you. Vivo has a better deal than you. So Google and YouTube taking this position that we don't do better deals is completely false. They do give better deals. They just don't give them to you. They just don't give them to you. And so when you think about the respect they have for you, if they value Vivo above iJustine, if they value Discovery Channel and Revision 3 above Smosh or whoever, just think about what that means. That means the native artists on YouTube get a worse deal than Rihanna. What does that say to you about how YouTube thinks? The only reason they cave with Vivo is because they have no choice, because Facebook is offering a better deal to Vivo or other competitors. But because the individuals in the YouTube ecosystem, the channel providers, are so passionate about YouTube and so enthusiastic about it, and because they're fragmented, they don't present a hardcore negotiating front. But you could, just like Vivo did. And Vivo has a fucking great deal. A really good deal. Final question?
All right.
Final question.
Quickly, I come from the B2B world, and really we're kind of latecomers to YouTube, but
Sure.
we've been in the digital video business for a while now. We have 80 websites, hundreds of thousands of email addresses. We start with email. The list is everything. The list is gold. That's
Right.
where we start. Now, maybe modify your deal just a smidge. I'm just thinking that, you've got Kaltura, Uyala, you've got Bright Cove, you've got Akamai, Limelight, all
Sure.
those. And those are who we use, right? Those are our bread and
You
butter.
pay for...
We pay for that bandwidth.
Yeah.
Now, you can go to Amazon. I always see half of those, 85% of those guys use Amazon anyway. But why don't we propose to YouTube that there is an entry level, or there is a tiered? You want this kind of access, we're gonna pay for it. We'll pay for some of that bandwidth. Instead of just free off the top, go ahead and let's pay into it.
I think that's a brilliant suggestion. I mean, if YouTube saying they have bandwidth costs is also pretty silly. If you just do a Google search about the dark fiber they bought up and the amount of fiber they own, they don't really have bandwidth costs the way that you setting up a web server would. They have that as a fixed cost. And so they're not paying these huge overages or CDN fees. But you're correct. You could say to YouTube, hey, I want a better split and I'm willing to pay for my storage. So I'll pay the $1,000 a year it takes to store a terabyte in the cloud, which is what it costs at like Dropbox. I'll pay that $1,000, give me the better percentage. Or I'll pay for my bandwidth, give me the better percentage. That's a great idea. But for business-to-business publishers, here's an idea. Turn off the ads and make unlisted videos, and then send those unlisted videos in your email, and you've got free hosting from YouTube. I mean, it's a little bit of a hack, but everybody's doing it. Final question.
Hi, Galen DiTilio from IGN, Ziff Davis.
Oh yeah, IGN, big fan.
Great, good. So something I've noticed is that you're talking a lot about doing a new deal, but something obviously that YouTube can do is just do more focused and targeted selling to increase CPM. So what can we do as a community to help convince them to do so?
Yeah, YouTube, my impression of Google and YouTube is that, and all technology companies, is they really don't respect content companies. I don't think that they think you're all that important on an individual basis. Any one person, I think they've greatly dismissed my arguments and me not taking the money. In fact, they probably think that I'm puny and insignificant in the grand scheme of things. And you know what? They're probably right. But I don't think if 5 or 10 people signed a letter saying, give us a better deal, and you know, Machinimum was one of them, or Maker was one of them, that they wouldn't take it very seriously. And any one of you, and I'm not going to do it, but any one of you could set up a little petition and say, we want a better deal. And just ask 2 or 3 of your friends to sign it. And then if 2 or 3 friends ask 2 or 3 friends to sign it, this could wind up being hundreds of YouTube creators. And then YouTube has no choice but to respond. And then that gives a window to those other competitors. And so if we take anything away from this, it's that YouTube is a great platform. YouTube has a huge opportunity. And it's YouTube's game to lose. And YouTube needs to just take a deep look in the mirror and say, are we giving the best deal possible to our content creators? And if they take that deep look, they will come to the same conclusion that all of you came to when you raised your hands, which is they're not. And they will fold. They will fold and they will give you what you want. But you have to stand united and take a strong position with them, and you need to be relentless in doing so. That's all the time I have. Thank you for coming.